Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you once again to the A&J podcast. This is our triumphant return. We back like we left sound once again. And it is January 2024. And this is going to be our first episode of the year. This is going to be the freestyle episode. This is my lovely host, A.
It's your girl, AP. I'm AP where I blog on everything. Make sure you're following the Instagram page for A&J Podcast, A_J Podcast. Over on Instagram, like I said, you can follow me at APY Blog or at APY Beauty. And of course, my lovely co-host, you can find him at Mr. Is it underscore?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. underscore Laconic J. You can follow me over here on TikTok too. I don't take myself too seriously over there. Like, I just be talking junk. But make sure you go ahead and follow. And of course, hit the subscribe button here. And you can subscribe to us on...
Sorry.
Cutting up. You can subscribe to us on Spotify. But we just dive right into it. So I think let me see. Let me look at the...
It's Mr. underscore Laconic underscore J.
Oh, you was throwing in a lot of underscores. I was coming to see when's the last time we actually did an A&J podcast.
It was after... Was it?
It was after our anniversary. Yeah, well,
because I know we did the last episode we did had to have been like after Vegas last year.
It was after our anniversary, and so I feel like it was the last one though.
June? Yeah, that was the last one. We didn't record again.
So we literally didn't we do a beginning of the year for 2023?
We did.
I'd have to verify the facts here, but the last episode we did was when we came back from Vegas, so it was definitely like June of 2023, and. This is just for like life is just life. And I know we say that's gonna be our tag. That's gonna be because I swear every podcast we do, I'm like life is just life, but it is. And that's really what we just came to do. We always open up the new year with just recaps and chats of where we're at in our current state of things. Shout out to the people who actually listen to us over on Spotify and Anchor and actually leave feedback on Anchor. It's a little bit humbling sometimes because it's like we definitely could be doing better about like promoting A&J podcast and being more consistent.
So we did say this year we giving a max of one episode a month, and if we feel strong, we might give you two randomly, but we gonna guarantee one. That's a guaranteed one because we are working adults, parents. We like to go out, you know what I mean? We like to chill with our friends. So sometimes it's hard to make the time for this because...
And here's the thing, like, we juggle, like he said, we juggle a lot. And I know, so, yes, I'm a blogger, but our lives, I think, are pretty standard in terms of, like, we're, like he said, it's working adults. So let's just recap on the things that have changed. In 2023, I made a job change to being a full-time litigation paralegal as opposed to being a hybrid position at my former job. And that, has been different because my work schedule is different. So I'm getting up earlier in the day, trying to squeeze in working out, which this whole last week I was trash. I didn't work out at all. But I'm getting up at like 4:45 in the morning to work out, get on the road so I can be to work by 7:30 in the morning. And then by the time I leave work, which is at 4, I'm going to pick up our younger son. So a lot of times we don't get in the door, both of us, until after 5.
Yeah, it's usually like 5:30.
So then
5:30, 6 o'clock.
The kids got homework, not so much my older son, but my younger son. And of course you want to make time to spend with the kids, talking to them, and then with one another, and then the hustle bustle, get showers and all that stuff together for the next day. But also we have a spiritual routine that we maintain. So on Monday nights, we're going to have service at our hall, and it's like to our meeting. So Monday nights are trash for us, period. So we don't really get to record unless it's in the evening hours.
And it's usually on a Sunday night.
Usually on a Saturday, Sunday, because our meetings are on Saturday versus most people going to church on Sunday. And it's not because of anything special other than we share our hall with other congregations. So our lottery day was just Saturday. So we're pretty, throughout the week, it's so much hustle and bustle. We don't have time to sit down and record. I don't have the energy.
And even the weekend is kind of tight because we have like Friday, like she said, we usually get home between 5:30 and 6. We try to just do something relaxing, you know, whether that's hanging out with friends or going out to eat or just, you know, doing something chill, like with the kids, Dave and Buster's, something like that. Like Friday is a chill night, so you definitely,
and we haven't even
impossible to get out.
Like we used to be real like rigid in terms of having movie night with the kids, and we haven't even done that in a while.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, I will say this, we've been investing a little bit more in our social life than we have previously, but I'm glad about that. I think it was something we needed to do. I think it breaks up the monotony of parenting 24/7 and working, 40 hours a week for both of us. And I just want to tip my hat to Jared because, there's always like this traditionalist role. Like I'm if y'all know the term trad wife is always trending on TikTok, but I'm traditional in the sense that I do believe in roles in the marriage. Fight your mom, not me, because I don't care. So a man takes care of certain things and a woman takes care of certain things. You have a partnership at ebb and flow. But the one thing I will say about Jay is that he's not your typical, because I work full time as well. Not only is he the main provider in our household, but he's also our runner. Like, he literally picks up the kids, drops them off, gets all of the things done, which eases up so Mondays and Fridays he gives me a break from picking up my son, like the oldest one. But he's literally working a full-time job from home and carting the kids off to school, getting our youngest one to ABA therapy. He spends quite a lot of time on the road and maintaining a full-time job. And to be honest, he's the one who does most of the cooking. And whether he cooks now or orders out or whatever, like, he's really juggling a lot. So I just want to make sure I'm publicly acknowledging, I tell him thank you behind closed doors, but I think it's important that I think in a world right now where the content around marriage and men and women and these gender roles and all that stuff, it's a lot of divisiveness, and I don't want to do that. Like, he's been absolutely amazing in our marriage when it comes to being present. Like, I saw a trend on TikTok where it's like being a single mother when you're married. And as much as I feel for these women, I can't relate because my partner is really my partner, hands down. So big kudos to you.
And full disclosure, like, that is something that kind of evolved out of a byproduct of me working from home, for one. But for two, like, for those who follow A on social media, she had hip surgery. She went through major weight loss following surgery in preparation for the hip surgery. So there was a 5-year period where she was, for lack of a more eloquent way to say this, she was down bad. She was limited in what she could do. So in that time, I picked up the slack that came with that, the things that she couldn't do. She had to parent more from a mental space, I guess you would say. Like, she was kind of like the coach calling in the plays to a certain extent.
That's pretty accurate. And when I think about, because he took on the more physical aspects, especially the driving, a lot of everything I did was very seated because my mobility was limited. So I would, meal prep and stuff in the kitchen, but a lot of days were taxing. And I think we've talked about it on here before, and I've blogged about it just so very openly about how those limitations, they were just days that I'd wake up and we knew from the time I woke up it was going to be a bad day based on how bad my body was flaring. And even then, he would literally pack up some food in a cooler, because this is before we had a bigger suite and had a little mini fridge and all that jazz, and he would put stuff in the cooler so I didn't have to get out of bed to feed myself in the morning because he was going off to work. Those roles, the way he stepped in, most people always leave it kind of like to the women to be the homemakers, but in this instance he really had to be the homemaker. Like he said, I was coming more from an emotional support space for the kids, doing homework assignments, doing projects, anything that didn't require a lot of physical taxing. And this actually makes me think about recently, since just a freestyle episode, where I've had to, if you follow me over on Instagram, you already know what time it is, but people are really coming at the weight loss, intentional weight loss surgery community, intentional weight loss period, and how they don't believe it's always about health and blah. There's a lot of different opinions right now. But it always ruffles my feathers. It bunches my panties because as someone, like he said, for 5 years was down bad, and I think that's putting it pretty politely.
Because we didn't even talk about the fact that we mentioned the hip surgery and the weight loss, that the weight loss had its own fallout. We know the hip surgery had its recovery period, but prior to that, there was also a thyroidectomy that you went through. So, and with that, not only were you battling the physical pain of the hip issue,
it was everything else that the thyroid disease was setting up.
The lack of energy.
If we're even honest about that, that started, before we caught on to it. The year before the thyroidectomy, I was having a baby. We were having our youngest child. So it's really been about 6 or 7 years that I was in this space of
really 8 years, because it happened. We everything started falling apart in the early stages of your pregnancy.
But I was about 2 weeks when we started to realize it was, we were going back to
about
Philly.
3 months in.
Yeah, we were about 3 months in, and we were getting ready to go back to Philly. We were walking to the airport, and I was having so much trouble mobily. And at the time, we didn't know it was going to turn into what it did. But it was a good 8 years of my life where I was not functioning at my best. And so whenever I talk about this, it really conjures up a lot of feelings for me, a lot of intense feelings. But when I think about how much dispute goes on about weight loss surgery and all that, I'm a person who believes in autonomy. So it's not even an issue of I'm pushing surgery on anybody else, but I am a big fan of doing what you need to do for your body. So when people try to argue me about my experience in my body and why I chose to have weight loss surgery, I think back to those moments and recognize just what was going on with me. And I shared openly recently in response to some of these videos that have been going around how Jay really stepped in to help pick up the slack, even things I couldn't do on my own. Like, I don't talk about it often, but needing assistance showering sometimes, needing assistance getting lotioned and putting on my panties because I was so flared up I couldn't bend over. Like, the mobility was so limited that, and the swelling and the joint and the edema, all that stuff was so intense that there were days where I literally required his physical assistance. So when I hear people talking about it or subliminally taking shots at me on the internet, and sometimes they don't do it subliminally, sometimes they're very open about mentioning, oh yeah, AP or whatever. When I hear people say that, it just makes me angry because they didn't have to live that life. And I always say to people when they kind of try to argue about intentional weight loss, I'm kind of like, if you had the option to switch places with me and choose to be 500 pounds, would you? It's not a soul on this planet who would say, yes, I would be 500 pounds, because you're lying. Captain, lying, boo, I'm calling it.
And it was, and don't get it twisted, at 500 pounds, she carried it well. She looked good doing it. But with the pain and the hurt and everything that came with that, not so much from the weight, but from the health issues
that were associated with it.
And some of them really weren't a direct result of
it. And I would like to clear that up. And I've spoken to this on the blog and on Instagram. I had underlying health conditions. I had health conditions, period. However, weight did exacerbate it, because when your mobility is limited or you're putting extra weight on bad joints, fat tissue being inflammatory, it's so many things, there's so many factors to it that, no, it wasn't the cause of my ailments, but it certainly exacerbated it. I hate to see that the fat community, the plus community, however you want to call it, is so divisive in these spaces. And instead, for me, I respect whatever choice people make for themselves, because I understand the mental capacity that it takes to go through weight loss surgery. I recognize there's a lot of people who are not ready for that. When you've been traumatized by the healthcare system in all your life or whatever, constantly being dismissed because of your size, I get why taking on weight loss intentionally, especially if you've been involved in diet culture and you yo-yo diet for years, can be triggering. It's to a person and why they would make the choice not to do that. But in the same respect, the way that I respect your decision to do that, don't be out here telling me I've butchered my body or I'm self-mutilating because I chose to want to have a better quality of life.
And realistically speaking, like that wasn't an easy decision to make. Like, your weight loss surgery came after years of trying to do it without surgery, like the quote unquote right way, eating right. We did nutritional shakes, smoothies, increasing water intake,
exercising even on a bad hip,
on bikes, walking with rollators, all kinds of things, going to the gym, using various equipment, yoga, chair routines, really strict diets, like 1,200 calorie intakes and stuff like that. Like, we try everything under the sun, and while there was some significant reduction that came with that, like, you probably lost like 50, 75 pounds on your own
60
without any surgery. But that was a grueling, time-consuming process, battling inflammation, bloating, hormonal changes, and if you look through the timeline and see the pictures, you can see when the inflammation was up. You can see when the bloating happened, when sometimes your body just doesn't want to work with you, especially when you're battling without a thyroid, when you're trying to regulate your hormones with supplements, basically. You know what I'm saying? And the doctors don't know what the right concoction is for your chemical balance. You know what I'm saying? So, like, they're trying different dosages. Maybe we need to increase it. Maybe we need to lower it. And then when you finally do get on the right track and see some positives come out of that, then your body says, I'm going in this direction.
Or your insurance changes, and we no longer are going to cover the medication that actually works for you. We want to have you continue to buy this medication that doesn't work for you at all, or is giving you additional symptoms that you didn't have before. And that was the challenge. And just to see him be able to share all of that from his own perspective just further emphasized how much what was going on with me was affecting my husband. Because he was there with me every leg of the journey. And in the process of this, he's practically taking on, all the responsibility of a newborn child shortly after, who was growing into a toddler and all that stuff, and raising our two older children as well. When my daughter was still, in middle school going into high school, and my younger son was, going from elementary to middle. Like, he literally was being super dad, was Batman, and still making the time to emotionally support me, as well as physically and financially. Like, so when y'all see me on the internet being passionate, y'all have to understand where that comes from, because the experience was so very humbling, but also gave me such an alternative view of things I previously thought about weight loss surgery, because I was very adamant about not doing it for years.
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, it's always easy to say what we would do until you're in that position. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't tell you how sometimes just the act of walking from my car to the door from the parking lot brings me to tears. Not because I'm sad, but because there was a time I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. When I think about the culmination of those 8 years or so, it is not a pleasant experience for me. So it's for me to be able to be in the position I am, and I know I owe it to having intentional weight loss. I need y'all to understand, when y'all see me, it may seem like it's something I address often, but the amount of misinformation, the amount of shade I've caught, the amount of follows that have happened because of my decision to support, people who choose to have weight loss surgery, it's not me just trying to be a messy Marvin. Like, I've been on both sides of the coin.
We need to stop projecting our feelings about things in general on other people, because we have the right to choices. We had a right to choose what we like. You know what I mean? And that makes me think about this post that I actually commented on the other day, where it's a plus size girl, I believe on a podcast or radio show or something. She's up there with other plus size girls, and she's talking about how she doesn't want to date a plus size man. She wants a healthy man who can motivate her and help her eat right and exercise and figure out how to do things better in life. And there was a lot of clapback for that, because it was kind of like, how dare you? How dare you, fat girl, not want to be with a fat boy? Like, you know, but one, there are so many, I see so many plus size women who refuse to have anything to do with a plus size man. And as a plus size man, I have no qualms about that. One, I'm in a mindset, well, of course, I'm happily married and I'm not looking for nothing else. But in addition to that, if I wasn't, like...
First of all, I just touched you like that and you ain't even flinch.
I'm trying to speak to the A&J podcast family over here. Let my mind go where my mind goes. I'm trying to put on a strong face for the public. But like I said, I'm not begging nobody to like me. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I respect people who want to choose what they choose. Like, if you like what you like, congratulations, good for you. I hope you get what you want. But even if what you're saying to me sounds like self-hate, like you really don't like yourself, so you don't want to be with anybody who reminds you of you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I respect your free will and your right to choose, because if you want to be, like, it's like people think if you look a certain way, you're not allowed to have better than what they think you deserve. Like, you're allowed to get whatever you can acquire. You get what you negotiate, not what you deserve, right? Because the best looking guys don't always get the best looking girls. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's ugly dudes who just got swag and confidence and money. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. Whatever it is. You know what I mean? You got that BDE. You know what I'm saying? You pulling them joints, and dudes on the sidelines is looking at you like, why does this ugly ninja keep getting all these joints? Well, maybe he working with something that you can't come with. You know what I'm saying? And same for women. You know what I mean? There's beautiful women of all shapes and sizes out there who get whatever men they want. And to all those people that was in the comments like, oh, a fit guy would never want to be with a woman who isn't fit. Like, yeah, right. Like, while there is a community of people who work out and want to be with people who work out and go on these health and fitness journeys together, there are segments of society little women who like big men, healthy men who like big women. You know, and whether it's because you're fetishizing these people, or because you genuinely just are attracted to these body types, like that's not a debate right here. The fact of the matter is, it exists. There's people small men that are happily married to big women that are happily married to small men, and vice versa. It's your right to choose. To each his own. We gotta stop projecting what we think people deserve on them. Like, fat people deserve to be with other people who aren't fat.
Fat people deserve to lose weight if they want to.
Right, and they can lose weight if they want to.
They don't have to lose weight.
And sometimes they'll lose weight dramatically and rapidly because diabetes is killing them. You know what I'm saying?
That is a fact.
The inflammation is hurting them. Like, the doctor might have told them, if you don't lose this X amount of weight, you're going to have a stroke. In this amount of time, you're going to drop dead.
Speaking of, I know this sounds crazy, but literally, speaking to that, it is at least 2 people I follow right now on my timeline. I follow a good amount of people who recently had strokes within the last year. And interestingly enough, they reside in fat bodies. It's not the cause, right? I'm not saying that's what the cause is. However, the things that concern me is that it's kind of a pattern. And I said this to someone recently. I, within the last 5 years, lost 2 people that I had formed business relationships and personal connections with online, who passed away from complications dealing with their vascular system and clots and circulation and strokes. And both of them were what is considered to be morbidly obese. Both of them talked very openly about the trauma they experienced in the healthcare system, which then in turn kind of, as they're trying to find their way to take care of their health, turned away from the traditional sense of healthcare, which I completely understand. But it's like they went so extreme. It was like, I won't even admit that there could be a connection between my weight and my health. They went the extreme opposite, and then both of them were unalived by unnatural causes as far as I'm concerned, because nobody should be dying in their 30s and 40s. And then again, me knowing people personally who recently stroked out and have been dealing with clots, and both of them at a sizable, and dealing with joint pain and issues, secretly coming to message me to tell me they need their hip replaced or they need to have their knees replaced. Like, this is happening real time in the plus community. But if you talk about it, you are considered fat phobic. If you mention it, and the interesting thing is the allies that have now, come into play, who are smaller women. So now they really want to eat it up, because small white women are telling you, yes, love your body. Diet culture is terrible. You don't have to lose weight or any of those things. And it's like, this conversation is so nuanced and complex, and there needs to be balance. I don't think it's one extreme or the other. I think it's overlapping issues. And instead of shaming people when they decide they want to take or pursue that journey, support it. Just like, as much as we hate being told, people come on our posts and they're like, lose weight, you're too big, nobody wants to see that. Like, in the same way that everybody comes and gives unsolicited advice about our bodies, it's like, we've gotten so angry in the fat community, we're just adapting the tools of the oppressor, and just, plugging in our own narrative behind it. Any choice you make shouldn't require you to have to hate the other group and what they do. And that's where we go from preference to prejudice.
And going from one extreme to the next isn't any better. And that's what I was thinking about a lot when you were just talking, because on one hand, everybody's pissed because the healthcare system is like, you can't sleep at night, you need to lose weight.
Your finger hurts?
You need to lose weight. You know what I'm saying? When's the last time you stepped on a scale? Have you thought about losing weight? What are you eating? Like, yes, weight does compound issues. But just like we were saying with we called out 3 things. Hip, thyroid, and we talked about with the dramatic weight loss.
Oh, well, let's talk about dysfunctional bleeding in the uterus, fibroids, 30 days of menstruating, y'all, real issues. But
the thyroid and the hip issue were genetic. Like, you were genetically predisposed to thyroid issues. Yep. The hip issue was hereditary.
And not to mention, I had a congenital birth defect that we didn't know about until I was older.
Like, these things were going to happen at any size. Like, she literally has a sister who
just had her hip replaced. And I got another sister who needs a hip replaced.
Who is not obese. Who has never been obese and still has the same hip issue. So these are things that weight, while it did compound and exacerbate these issues, it wasn't the reason for it. But without the fight that you put up for yourself. Like, she literally had, like, when I said she became the coach calling the plays, like, there was a lot of when we discovered that this wasn't going to be a quick fix solution, because early in her pregnancy we were like, oh, maybe it's sciatica, maybe it's the baby.
When she had the baby, and they told me, I remember, I'll never forget, it was like one of my second to my last visits, right before we had our youngest. I was complaining about my hip because it started out as feeling like back pain. We were early in the pregnancy, and then it progressed to me being able to really feel it in my hip. And I said that to the OBGYN who was seeing me at the moment, and she was just kind of like, oh, it's okay. Because I had a prior history of having damage to the pelvis when we had our middle son. So she was like, it'll go away after you have the baby. So when I had the baby and dropped 46 pounds a couple, within the first 2 months of having him, and that pain wasn't going away, it was a very alarming moment. I had a job interview shortly after I went back to work after having my son. It was literally across the street from where I work and around the corner. So I don't even think it was a mile. I don't even think it's a mile walk, right? Not even close to being a mile. And I remember going for that interview because it was like a lunch break interview. Like, I scheduled it. It was that close. And I literally crossed the street and had to sit on the side of like the wall or whatever. I called my husband, sobbing hysterically, because I'm like, something is wrong. I can't even take a normal walk. Like, something is off, and we didn't know what it was. So when we found out what it was, and it wasn't going to be something that was going to go away right away, it was like somebody punched me in the chest.
And plus, we're from the city. Like, we came from Philadelphia to Georgia and to the Atlanta Metro, and like, we was always on trains, walking the street.
Even with a car, like, we still often say public transit a lot.
And even being overweight, like,
we were hiking it.
You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't a thing. Like, that wasn't, so walking wasn't an issue, so for that to happen, like, to not be able to walk even a couple blocks, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, whoa, something is wrong. Like, I mean, because even a walk from the house to the train, take the trolley or the L or something like that, like,
it was a hike.
It was a hike compared to what she was talking about.
But I think one of the things he pointed out, like, this was compound with me having thyroid disease and not knowing it. So I had put on an exponential amount of weight in a very short amount of time after having lost an exponential amount of weight in a short amount of time just a couple of years before. So there were some mitigating factors going on here. And when you compound the thyroid being all out of whack, then they have to remove the thyroid. So now your body has to recalibrate and get adjusted to meds. And I'm watching my weight. When I delivered my youngest, I was 424. I had gained 13 pounds the entire pregnancy. I had gone down 46 pounds by the time he was maybe about 2 months old. And then I started to slowly gain weight. But when they removed that thyroid, the following year, because he was born in July, and I got my thyroid out in like September or October of 2017, I watched my weight climb from 440, going to another appointment, 486, going to another appointment, 492, and then stepping on the scale and seeing 505. Like, over the course of from 2017 to 2018, by 2019, I had hit the 500 mark. I'm sorry if I cut you off, but how many times did the doctor even tell you, like, because of the thyroidectomy and the trouble trying to regulate the hormones afterwards, that weight loss surgery may not even work? Right. Oh, that was the thing. So that, I can't tell you how many, I think it's about 3 times prior to actually having the surgery that we attempted weight loss surgery in my lifetime of even us being together, and this year will be 19 years. how many times I had approached weight loss surgery and never went through with it, but this was the first time in my life that I felt like I didn't have a choice. I was waking up in the middle of the night panicking, afraid to die. Afraid to die. And not without reason, because my thyroid was bad. I was in hyperthyroid mode, and I was growing a goiter, and it was so big it was crushing my esophagus and my trachea. And the body's response is to go into like a panic mode, anxiety mode, like sleep apnea, to wake you up so that you don't die. And I was dealing with this. I remember trying to look out the window one night and was like crying, and my husband waking up and just being like, what is wrong, what is going on? And me telling him like, I am afraid to die. And that happened more than one time. Like, to know that, all right, you have a congenital birth defect, it can't be fixed unless you replace the joint. But you can't replace the joint unless you lose weight, because you're too large to get a joint replacement, because you're so young having it that the expectation is you will need it at least twice in your lifetime to be replaced. But the larger you are, the more wear and tear on the joint. So we don't want to run the risk. You're also a liability to the hospital. If you drop down on our table, we're going to be having to pay, da, 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 da. Like, this is like real red tape stuff happening. This is our healthcare system at work. And so I couldn't even get what I needed to give myself the relief to become more mobile, to help myself lose weight. Like, it was like a vicious little cycle. And we had to jump through so many hoops to get to what we needed. But once I did it, my surgeon didn't think I was going to lose the amount of weight that the day I went into surgery, I think I was either 450 or 447, something like that. And in order for me to be eligible for my hip replacement, I had to be 330 pounds. Now listen to the timeline here. I was 450 to 440, somewhere between there, right? And August of 2021, when I went to go see the orthopedic surgeon, he said, you need to be 330 pounds. And by the time I had gone to see my orthopedic surgeon, I was just on the cusp of like 399. And I was only like 2 months, I wasn't even 2 months post-op, I don't think. Like, I lost a good amount of weight in a fast amount of time, like 30 pounds, like within the first 2 weeks of having surgery. So I went to see him, and he said, that's nice and all, but you got to be 330 pounds. I was still at the end of the 400s. He was expecting a year from then. By March of 2022, I was 330 pounds. September, October, November, December, January, February, March. 7 months. By the time we hit 7 months, I was eligible. He was so shocked, like,
he had to apologize.
First of all, he apologized to me because he didn't think, he said, you know how many weight loss surgery patients I have that told me they was going to do this, that, and the third, and they just didn't do it. Or they didn't. He's like, you did this remarkably in this amount of time. And even though I didn't go on to have my surgery until June, that was by choice because we had vacations coming up and I didn't want to have surgery to interrupt things. But that whole process, from the moment I was eligible for that hip replacement, let's not even talk about how I wasn't even eligible at one of the hospitals for the weight loss surgery because I was still too big, even after losing 60 pounds on my own. I got so fortunate that Dr. Proctor from Too Large was like, you're a candidate, I'll take you. Really starting with Dr. Proctor, then snowballing 7 months later to, my orthopedic doctor and him being able to put me on a schedule. Once those two surgeries collided, my life saw an exponential change. Like, it was incredible. And so when I'm out here really everybody thinking I'm pushing weight loss surgery, I'm not. Like, I'm just sharing what it did for me. These opportunities would not have aligned if I hadn't had this specific surgery to save my life. And when I say save my life, I mean physically and mentally. Nobody knows, unless you've been in that position, what that depression feels like when you're losing pieces of yourself and you can't control it, and you need to rely on your husband to do basic things. And I was out of work on disability, and while I got to blog full time and I started my own business, I almost felt forced into that. I didn't have a choice. I was so...
Even that took some convincing because she was opposed to it. Like, initially because she wasn't working full time. It didn't feel right. Like it was almost like I had to convince her to go through with the business, with starting the business, because she was resistant to it. She felt like it was something that she was supposed to be doing in addition to working. Like the job was supposed to supplement this endeavor, not this be the primary focus, you know. But you know, we got over that. She did it, and had a good.
I don't even intend to like go down this journey on this conversation. We said we were gonna freestyle it, but like I have to say that even just talking about it right now, really just being open and transparent, because this is not something I've always touched on with my audience on my Instagram. Like, I don't even think like this weight loss journey has been, I tell people, has been spiritual as much as anything else. Not because I got to lose weight, but because the work required to do it and the therapy required to address my relationship with food, weight gain, the trauma to my body from my health and the mistreatment in the healthcare system. All those things opened up doors for me. And there would be times throughout this process where I would be on the bike just crying for so many reasons, because I can now actually bike comfortably. I'm walking, I'm wearing heels. Me and my husband can go to the grocery store together. Like, those things are unfolding. I'll never forget being able to sit on a swing with my kid for the first time, or, you know,
for him to see you
without a rollator. My youngest had never seen me without a mobility aid from the time he was a kid. So to be able to run around with him and to go out with my friends and not have to calculate the steps from the car to the front door, and if he's got to drop me up, like having to call ahead, did you guys have space for a rollator? Like
the planning that will go into
live.
Because as we tried to go, as even in the midst of it, we still tried to have
a life,
a social life. Like, and I commend everybody who, like, when we, I guess as we were building up momentum to, like, for her to really be comfortable being out and active and using mobility aids, and remembering that she could still live a full life regardless of what the circumstances was. Like, we looked at people who were wheelchair bound, paraplegics, all kinds of stuff, who were traveling the world. You know what I mean? Like, I remember seeing somebody on like a mountain in a mobility scooter, or a wheelchair, like a mobile wheelchair or whatever like that. Like, some people that do that, hats off to them, because we've had some situations, right? Like, the planning that would go into traveling, even to just go out somewhere, like, and looking at, is it handicap accessible? Are the bathrooms handicap accessible? What type of seating do they have there? What's the arrangements for this venue like? Are there elevators? Is it a ramp? Do I need a mobile?
There have been times we've gone to alleged handicap accessible places and they really weren't. And my husband and women who were vlogging with me or doing a shoot had to help carry my scooter up a set of stairs, because there was a ramp, but the restaurant had the tables and the chair seating literally in the walkway of any accessibility once the ramp reached the sidewalk. And to have to see my girl in her heels and her fancy shoes helping my husband.
Shout out to Britt, because Britt was dressed
and
makeup, face
heels on,
and like she's like, you need some help? Helping me grab this scooter.
Let me definitely make sure I say this to you guys might know her on Instagram as Britt Dazzle, 6 Feet of Fashion, Jasmine Murphy, Ashante Hubbard of Christian Only Shine, Nzinga was also a great one. Alexis Rackley, the women, Lorna from Elda,
I was about to say, don't forget
Marie Dene, for the women who invited me into their spaces and worked with me, Mercy Cruz, and decided I was worthy, Riche Lutz, and were willing to accommodate me.
And just for the record, if anybody was forgotten, it wasn't
intentional. I'm just running off the names.
Off the dome.
Like for the people who Chastity Garner of Garner Style.
You said Marcy too.
Marcy Cruz, absolutely. Who literally allowed me into their spaces when they didn't have to, and never made me feel bad about how my body was functioning. I don't think you know how, you might if you're in the plus community, but it's already alienating enough in the world when you are large, but to go into a space that's supposed to be safe for you, and it really doesn't feel that way because things aren't made accessible to you. I learned so much about being ableist, even in the body I resided in quite prior to this. I learned a lot about accessibility and disability and all the unfairness surrounding it, and then compounding it with being in a large body. It changed my perception of life in the world around me. So I do feel a modicum of guilt, I'll say this, not so much with the plus community, with my disability community. Because now that I'm mobile and I'm walking, I'm able to do all the things that I was not before. That's not everybody's story in these communities that I've made connections in. Yeah. So the one thing I want to make sure I'm always vocal about is accessibility. And as the new year has begun, the plus community in Atlanta is going to ready to start up their functions for the year, as they do. This one of the worst experiences I had was at a function event that was for a plus size community. So you got girls who already got the bad knees and bad ankles from being plus size, okay? And you don't have elevator accessibility for somebody who has a rollator or a wheelchair or a scooter or a cane. And having to climb the stairs to get to the main function of the event was I'm almost mad at myself for doing it. But it was like I was in my head trying to be the representation I wanted to see, but I stopped supporting. And I'm going to say that again, if you are in this plus community, you're advocating for diversity and all this stuff, don't leave out the girlies who have limited mobility. And there's a lot of us in the plus community who have limited mobility. They just weren't being vocal about it. They just weren't being honest about it. And then they would slide in my DMs and be like, girl, like I couldn't stand, my back was hurting so bad. Oh, I wish I could have gotten on your scooter because that walk from point A to point B, there was no wheelchair accessibility, so I couldn't even attend the event. Like, that should not be happening in 2024. And it shouldn't have been happening at all. But so when I think about all the things that I've gone through over these last few years, I recognize that the experience I think that shaped me more than being fat was being disabled. And so I never want to alienate myself from the disability community, because the reality is I got a bad right hip. A lot of people don't know that. It's only a matter of time before that's going to need to be replaced. Life can humble you so quickly. You know what I mean? And it was with that thought that I made decisions that I did for my health. Like, I got to seize the iron while it's hot. Like, I'm still young enough to be able to run around with my kids and travel with my husband. That can be taken in an instant. So when people are being vocal about their decisions for their bodies and we are meeting them with disdain, and that's not to take away from the fact that there are girlies in the plus size community who literally lose weight and they trash their former bodies and their former friends and their former community. That I totally understand, being over it.
And you should be.
And you should be. But those bad apples are tainting a whole segment of women who are doing it really for the reasons that they say that they are. It's a quality of life thing.
Yeah, we gotta
leave room for everybody to have different experiences and be supportive of wherever each, like, you telling me I don't want to lose weight and all this stuff because I have trauma with the healthcare system. I want to hug you through that. Mm-hmm. So when I tell you that I'm making the decision to lose weight because my body is hurting, I want you to honor that as well.
And it's really, at the end of this, it's called a community because it takes a diverse palette of people to make it up, right? So we gotta let people tell their stories.
Everybody's it's not a monolith. Just like when we refer to the black community, right? There's all these assumptions about what being black is, especially in our country. But it's a conversation that spans across many nations that have black people in it. And in that conversation, whenever something falls outside the purview of what people perceive to be black, right, it's not met with embracing. It's met with like, girl, now you know you too black to be doing that. Like, I saw a video that broke my heart of this girl who was like, she had styled her braids after they had been in her head for a minute. The style was, if you know anything about anime, it was very like emo anime, you know, or one of those genres that the alternative girls be into. And it was cute. It was a cute little look, but the amount of black women in the comment section eating her up was terrible. And it made me realize, and it was all about her not being black enough, but that's not something. So it made me realize, like, in the same way within the black community, where we think that the black experience really is all one thing, but it's not. Like, depending on you, the color of your skin, your family makeup, your location is going to determine how you come out as a black person. Same thing in the fat community. Like, the experience of being fat is not all one thing.
That is so true, because in the black community, it's either you're too black or you're not black enough. And in the fat community, you're either too fat or you're not fat enough.
And there we go. And you're not. And it's like, it's never a meeting of the minds. And what's incredible for that, when you just say that out loud, is just realizing, like, not only am I black, I have been dealing with the year two this or year two that my entire life. And now it's you're black and you're fat. You and everybody have an opinion about how you should operate in your body. I just think there needs to be more understanding, because it's not a monolith. The experience is not the same for everybody, and there's even a difference in being a white fat person and a black fat person. Yeah. Privilege and accessibility in healthcare. It's so many different things that play into it that I feel like we need to just be more supportive if you're going to claim to be a community. I did not expect this to be where the conversation went, but I'm definitely glad we talked about it, because A, you my bestie, and if there's anybody I can shoot the crap about this stuff, it's going to be you. And I do thank you for the safe space you've created over the years, so I don't have to feel like I gotta, online it's like you try to be considerate of people's triggers, although that's a whole different story. And so maybe you don't always say the things that you want to say, because even in all of my transparency and vulnerability, I still offend people. So like, there's some things that I just kind of limit myself in saying, but being able to sit here and talk with you, just kind of talking through it, made me realize that, it's a conversation that needs to be had safely.
It does. And I hope that me being able to provide my perspective of, but it's primarily your journey, but it's also a journey as a married couple we share together, right? Because I think one of the things that I was getting ready to say that we kind of just went down a whole nother tangent with, but there was a conscious decision early on when we knew what your diagnosis was, that we had to put our heads together and really figure out how we were going to take this journey together. Like, and for how old were you when you got that initial diagnosis? Was it, because he's 7.
I was 31 when I gave birth to him. Right. I was 32 when I got the diagnosis. That's
what I thought it was. So like, can you imagine telling somebody at 32 that they have what is the word that I'm thinking of? Whatever, you need your hip replaced, right?
Degenerative.
You have a degenerative hip disorder, and you have at 32, you was told you had the hip of like a 70, 80-year-old woman. Yep. Like, do you, like, one, when the doctor said that pissed both of us off dramatically, because he was really like callous about it, and I don't even think his intention was to be malicious, but you gotta understand who the person is on the receiving end. So there's that, and then you're 32 and you're being told you have a hip that's 50 years older than you, and you need to do X amount of work to resolve this, and it's not gonna be 2 months, it's not gonna be 6 months, It's not going to be a year. At the end of the day, it turns into like a 5-6 year journey.
And the hip's not getting better in the process.
Right. Like,
it's degenerative, so it's getting worse.
So we had to. There was an immediate response to like, yo, I should just give up. Like, why should I just give up? Why do I even need? I want to take this journey. Why do I even want to live this life? Like, and that's not just her. You know, we have other people that we've met along the way through time that are battling their own health issues. And to see, especially for somebody who's under 40, 50 years of age, going through these things, the mental toll, the mental fortitude that you have to develop to endure this stuff, nobody can really understand until they experience that firsthand. So we had to figure out how to do this. I know my immediate reaction was like, how much can I take off of your plate so all you have to focus on is dealing with the health journey? Like, I'm gonna make sure we got all the money we can pour into this. We gonna have it so we can pay for whatever medications, whatever doctor's visits, specialist visits, x-rays, labs. Like, I was trying to do everything in my power to make sure that we had the resources we needed. I had FSA for years and didn't know how to wasn't utilizing it properly. It was times I was putting money on there and like straight throwing it away. And then that turned into, okay, let's do this so we can get the mobility aids. Let's do this so we can get the scooter, and let's get the lift for the car. And like, it was a whole process, like thousands of dollars going.
He had to adjust his whole entire life to supporting my needs. And I think that's the part that I really wish people got the gist of, and that it was directly linked with having to do something drastic enough to get us to this point. And it still took 7 years.
Yeah.
Like, and it was all linked to needing to lose weight to get to the next point. So when people are so disgusting about their response to weight loss surgery, or they think it's the easy way out, and that's coming from inside the house and outside the house, so people and their opinions about it, it's like, you really don't know what you're talking about.
And we ain't even gonna talk about how many times did we move in the midst of all of this. Like, we moved like 4 times, right?
And not my choice either.
And we could do a whole episode just off of
the housing market in Georgia.
Like, that's a topic all unto itself, because there's the thing.
And how many times you have to move, and let's remember, still juggling raising kids, right, in the middle of all that.
And not to mention kids who have their own set of circumstances.
And not to mention my mama moving in because of her health. Like, when I tell you it was the perfect storm, and the only thing that was going to give me even a modicum of control was to be able to get that weight loss surgery. When I talk about it, y'all, I promise you, this is not I'm better than you, or weight loss surgery is the way. But I need to be honest in my journey, because I know I'm not the only one going through this stuff.
Right, and it wasn't like this was the cheat code. You know what I mean?
That's like, the longest cheat code I ever knew. Because
this wasn't like, I want to get this surgery so I can shop at the little girl stores. You know what I mean? So now I can model, or so I can increase my numbers, so I can be a social media baddie. Like, this was real. Like, I want to be able to walk up and down the steps.
I want to go to the bathroom without assistance.
Right.
I want to go to the grocery store.
I don't want to have to mentally prepare myself to get out of bed. You know what I'm saying? Just to walk out of bed. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that went into that, and it was such a journey. And like, whatever she says, you know, I appreciate the praise publicly, more so privately, because the public piece of it, I always tell her I don't need. She feels like it's almost like what.
It's not that it ain't bad. People to know, like, this is not. I didn't do it by myself. I really did.
Like it's like, yo, I'm so proud of you. I need as many people as possible to know, like, the work you put into this. But I feel the same way because in spite of whatever I took on from, driving our kids around when it was the three of them going to school, taking her to work, grocery shopping, cleaning, working, taking the kids to whatever their extracurricular things were, making sure we're doing our work spiritually, going to the gym, whatever else that comes along, planning vacations, taking vacations, stuff like that, which is no small task. But like, as much of the physical aspect that I took on and the additional responsibilities that weren't traditional man roles, like, I still feel like I got off easy because I didn't have to go through any surgeries. I haven't had to do any type of weight loss surgery or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have to bear the brunt of the mental health that comes along with these things. Like, my scars or whatever I have to endure physically pale in comparison to me, though, to the journey you had to go on for that amount of time. So I wouldn't trade places with you. Like, I don't want to be 500 pounds and dealing with carrying all of that. Like, so despite the fact that you weren't on the front line, like, you were still dealing with the weight of all of that, just finding the fortitude to make the appointments, to fight with the doctor, and all of that. Like, to me, that's just as commendable, if not more so.
Well, thank you.
So,
if you're watching this and this is your first time really hearing this story, or maybe you're watching this and you do follow me on Instagram, but not this much insight was given, I just do hope that, when y'all see me celebrating these wins, it's not a brag. I promise it's not a brag. It's really a gratitude, because just a couple of years ago, I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And so, even though I'm literally battling depression right now, just due to human imperfection, I still have to leave room for that gratitude to be able to do everything that I'm able to do right now. And I won't sit and pretend that it doesn't have to do with weight loss, because it absolutely does.
Yeah, man. And so I guess what's the theme, or what's the part and message that we want to leave with people? Like, learn from her what she went through, so that you can show others who may be enduring similar circumstances the respect that they deserve. And when you see them on the other side of their journey, when you see them running their victory lap like A is doing right now, like we are doing right now, because we just went to Vegas last year and walked up and down the strip, took trolleys, she slid through the air on some type of zip line, you know what I'm saying? Like, this wasn't even a thought, you know what I'm saying? 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. So for us to be here, respect it. That's the victory lap. Like, we've been through something to get here, and we're on the other side of it. There's nothing nobody's gonna say to stop us from celebrating. And anybody else who's having
the encouragement for me is to tell y'all to do what is needed for your health. And that can look like whatever it needs to look like, whether it's your mental or your physical health. And whatever choices people are making, remember, you are not the person on the other side of the choice. You have no idea what they're going through. Just be compassionate.
Right. Respect.
You know what I mean? And even if it's a choice you wouldn't personally make, respect that there's a reason that person is making it for themselves. And that's it. And I feel like we'd get much further in these conversations and within the Plus community, much further. But that's going to be our time. This is my bedtime. I got work in the morning.
We've been recording for over an hour now.
Oh my God. We're gonna wrap it up here, and we don't know what we'll talk about next, and we're gonna try again for February. So
yep, and we probably will because we'll be.
We can do it when we come back from Vegas because we'll be going to Vegas again in a couple weeks. And maybe we'll do one after we come back from Vegas. It'll be a good middle point of the month. But yeah, it's been fun, y'all. We hope we didn't bore you too much. But welcome to all my other basic standard parents to the chat. We'd love to have you here. And we'll see you guys on the flip side.
All right. Peace, y'all. Thank you.